Good morning. This is the House Appropriations Committee. It is Thursday, April 24th, 2025. It's 9 a.m. and we're continuing to try to better understand federal funding as it relates to state departments and agencies across state government. And this morning, we are delighted to have with us folks from the Agency of Education. We have Sean Cousineau, the Interim Chief Financial Officer, and Ann Ordinero, Federal Education and Support Division Director. Sounds like you probably do some federal funds and grant stuff. So yes. Welcome both of you. If you'd like to both introduce yourselves and then we'll start the conversation, please.
Sure. Good morning. I'm Sean Cousineau, the Interim CFO at the Agency of Education.
And I'm Ann Ordinero, the Division Director for Federal and Education Support Programs at the agency.
Thank you.
Sure.
So we do have a spreadsheet that that's the Sarah spreadsheet, the Sarah Clark, the big one that Erin put back up in today's calendar or documents for today. And then we have a handout that you all prepared. So I think between the two of them, we have the dollars and the kind of overview of what we're talking about. So we'll let you, now that I've oriented the committee, why don't you take it away, please?
Okay. You want me to share the slides on the screen?
Yeah, let's do that. Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for having us in. You've already met us, so I'll keep going right to the agenda. The slides are going to go over how much federal spending authority is in our budget for FY26. And we'll talk about where the federal funds come from, what federal agency, and then the programs that they fund out of each agency, and then the positions that we fund with at AOE with the federal dollars. So this is our budget request and broken out by spending type, personal services, operating, grant. So we got a total of 206 million. And as you can see, the majority of that is the grant line, which so that money all flows mostly to school districts with nutrition programs. It also goes to child daycares and those types of places. Of the 15 million, there's 8.8 million that is salary and benefits for our staff. So a large portion of that. And then we do a fair number of contracts out of federal dollars too.
Okay, 8.8 million of the agency staff?
Yes, 8.8 million is used to fund agency staff.
We have a lot of federally funded employees.
We do.
And, yeah.
Oh, that's fine. I'm just trying to
Yeah.
clarify. I mean, it could also be staff at schools,
Sure.
supervisory.
Yeah.
Can't.
That's your agency.
Agency that, yes, yeah.
How many staff are in the Agency of Education?
We have 178 positions
Okay.
and federal money touches 92 of them in full or partially. It's a total of, you'll see this later, it's about 65 total FTE.
Okay. Great, thank you. Okay, go. Thanks.
And then these are the revenues. So 24 revenues, we got 116 million from the US Department of Education, 34 million from the USDA for our nutrition program, for a total of 150 million. You'll notice the difference, the budget versus revenues. So, we do have still have a little carryover from the COVID money that is increasing our budget spending authority.
That was in FY 2024. Is it similar for 26?
There's a little bit in 26, and we do budget for a little carryover of our regular federal money too.
Yeah.
So it inflates the budget a little more than the revenues.
So Right, so, but I see, so 2026 was 206 million, which includes some. So, yeah.
So the USDA dollars are like food programs?
Yeah.
And if this is not the time to answer the question, then please, we'll answer it later, but, there's been talk of dismantling the US DOE. What do we know about that in terms of anything, but specifically about the dollars and how it would affect a third of your staff?
Yeah, what we know, or what we think we know, is funding for, next year, FY 26 should be level, around the same as the money we received for FY 25. So that's a little good news, I'd say, for at least 1 year. I don't know much beyond that. Other than I've heard, the news stories as well, so.
And then from a programmatic standpoint, what does it mean if Department of Education, the US Department of Education goes away?
Yeah, it depends on what they do with the programs, if they shift them to other agencies, which I've heard some of the bigger programs will probably move. But yeah, if they cut their federal programs, it'll have a big impact on our staff, because that work will just no longer exist, or the money.
And I think Anne has something to say here.
Yeah.
Anne, go ahead.
Federal.
Yes, I was just going to say that the Department of Education can't be entirely dismantled without congressional action, first of all. Second of all, the programs can't be dismantled without congressional action, even if they were moved to other agencies. At this point, what we're hearing is that the core, what they consider the core federal formula grant programs, so the Elementary and Secondary Education Act programs, Perkins, and the IDEA, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act programs, which are the majority of the federal dollars we receive, that those programs are considered, that they value those programs. The staffing for those programs is still there. Most of the cuts so far in the Department of Education have happened to other parts of the department's work. That said, we do have concerns because some of the sort of back office work that goes into things like determining allocations for these programs for different states and LEAs, some of those staff are gone. So we'll be watching it closely. And I believe that the state is involved in a lawsuit, as a party to a lawsuit challenging the ability of the Department of Education to fulfill its statutory responsibilities with the staffing cuts. So we'll see where that goes. But for now, the core programs that we rely on, the ones on the slide here, and the staff to support those core programs are still there.
So, Anne, you specifically, I wrote down IDEA, so that's the special ed, and then what was the other one?
Elementary and Secondary Education Act, ESEA, which is what people refer to as the title programs.
Okay,
And then there's also, as you can see, there's some additional other programs here, but most of them fall under one of those two groups, IDEA or title, ESEA. There's also Perkins for career and technical education.
right. Okay. And the migrant education one is still
That
going?
is still going. That is part of Title I. And as far as we know, Title I is still going to be funded next year in the same, basically level funded from this year.
Okay, yes, go ahead.
Just to clarify then, it sounds as if all of these programs are tied to one of the title education programs that are on this list.
Well,
I mean, is there any?
Adult education is not part of title. It's its own authorizing legislation. Career and technical is Perkins. IDEA-B and IDEA-B preschool are IDEA, which is a separate law. And Stronger Connections is a one-time grant program that was created during the Biden administration that has about another 18 months of time. The rest of them are all part of the ESEA or title programs.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Pretty much talked about this slide, so I'll move on. Unless you
Yeah,
have-
is there anything else on, I'm just trying to see on the slide, it sounds like an education for homeless children and youth. So all those seem to be staying at the moment.
Right, yeah.
Okay,
Next, we have the USDA program. So our lunch programs, our child daycare programs, fresh fruits and vegetables. So let's see what we have here. So it's.
a lot of grants under this, it's very interesting how many, milk and
Yeah,
fruits and equipment and performance and.
Yep.
Mhm.
right. So as far as we've heard, none of these programs have been cut to date either. And we haven't seen any action by Congress or any rule changes. So that's some good news. We are hearing the staff at the regional office and national offices are being reduced. And that may cause same issues with the Department of Ed, where, our funding, I think our funding comes quarterly through those offices, and we may see delays in those. We may see delays in being able to draw the funds, depending on what people are there to approve those. So those are, I think, our biggest concerns with USDA at the time. There has been some programs cut, but they either didn't run through our agency or hadn't started yet. So we were.
What has been cut?
There were some local food programs in a.
Right, the 1.7 million?
Yes.
Right, okay.
in, Patrick Leahy program as well with.
What is that?
Down here.
It's also a local foods
Another
program.
local food. Yeah,
You know how much that was?
I don't know
Yeah.
off the top of my head, no. The grants that were already awarded were not cut, but new grants that people had applied for were no longer funded, is my understanding. And I believe both of those operate out of the agriculture department at the state.
No, I don't remember talking about the Leahy grants. Do you, Tom?
No. It's 1.7, which is two different
Right,
grants, 1.2 and the 500.
right. Which we knew about, but not the local foods, other one. What is TFAP?
It is the program that we are a pass-through. We use it to provide food to the food bank, resources for the food bank to procure food.
And that comes from USDA to you and you send it to the food bank? Huh.
Yes. And Rosie, our child nutrition director, is just letting me know that the Patrick Leahy Farm to School grant didn't run through us, through the state. It was a direct grant. So some schools had applied directly to USDA for it. So that's why you're probably not seeing it in your
Okay,
spreadsheet.
great. Thank you, and
You're welcome.
Rosie. So TFAP, it looks like 555,000. And then there's 3.5 million non-monetary. Is that like the food itself or something goes to the food bank?
Let me just ask her.
Well, it's money from USDA. Or not money, it's just non-monetary. Well, that's what I'm thinking, that it's actual food.
I'm thinking it's commodities myself too, but that's what I'm going to ask her for.
Right, so it
Yes,
says
she says,
commodities,
yes,
but I'm
it
not,
is commodities. Yeah,
so that's actual food
yes,
that's going directly to the food bank.
yes.
And I'm just finding this interesting that goes through the Agency of Education to get to the food bank. Can you help me understand that?
USDA purchases the food. We have a certain amount of sort of permission to access a certain amount of it. And we choose, in the case of the TFAP program, to subgrant that.
I see.
Yeah. And we have some administrative funds to distribute. They get some administrative funds as well to distribute the foods. We
Okay.
also operate USDA foods for schools. So schools also can access those direct food commodities through a process that we manage as the sort of the middleman.
Okay, and, all right, Wayne?
So that makes a bunch of items. So it's discretionary, you're choosing to send some of that food to the food banks rather than for the schools? It's not needed in the schools?
Let's wait to see what Rosie's answer is on that one. I'm not, I believe it is discretionary for us to do that, but I don't know that it would go to the schools if we didn't do that. It might go to some other entity, so let's see what she has to say.
And the 34 million on the previous page covers all of these boxes here. That's the funding for those. Cash in lieu of what?
In lieu of foods for the childcare programs, they can get the value of that food, USDA food, in cash instead, because they're very small and, you know, they can do more. So it looks like TFAP is for food banks. It's designed for food banks, so it's not. Yeah, it's a separate program. USDA Foods has different programs within it, and TFAP is specifically for food banks.
Okay.
Okay.
And it just happens to run through the Agency of Education from the USDA as opposed to to the Department of Agriculture. All right, that's just weird, but okay, whatever.
So the cash in lieu, so what's going on if some people getting cash instead of food?
The programs get the cash. So if they choose to get the equivalent value of the foods in cash, then the childcare program can get cash. So they would use that cash to buy food, but it might be more meaningful for them to buy, you know, or to have the cash to operate their program than to get, you know, a whole order of some food item.
But it's cash to buy food as opposed to cash to go do something else.
Right. It's not like just free money. There's certain allowable uses for it. There may be also permission to use it for example, for staffing, I don't know, but it all has to be justified and related to the allowable uses of the funds for food for children.
Okay. So these programs are all still going to run through 2020 FY26 as far as you know?
As far as we know.
Okay.
And changing them, I think Sean said this in the beginning, changing them would require congressional action as well.
Right. Well, I guess that's good. I mean, they pay attention. I know. Okay. So there's also a lot of COVID dollars that were on the sheet from FY 2024 that it's not part of your presentation, but it's on the spreadsheet. So I wonder if you want to talk a little bit about some of its ESSER, that was 106 million, maybe that's all gone.
Yeah, I mean, the majority of the COVID money will be gone in FY 25.
Okay.
We did have approval for late liquidation, extending some of it into 26. But now that's kind of up for reapproval, so we're applying again to extend some of that for us and for AOE and for the districts. There's a fair amount of money that they have that is kind of in limbo.
So how much money is in limbo that's COVID related?
I'm thinking around 10 or 11 million.
And were they for specific?
Mostly our PESER.
Mostly the ESSER, okay. Is that like ESSER 1, 2, 3?
ESSER 3.
ESSER 3, okay. remember those numbers. I can't remember what each one
I
stands for.
can't either, 1, 2.
There was 1, 2, and 3, okay. So, and were those reimbursable? So they spend the money and they might not get reimbursed, is that?
Normally we do get reimbursed, but yeah,
But they're reimbursable grants is how they're operating.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So they did change the rules on us, so, right, we may not get reimbursed. First, we have to, apply for a waiver.
So has the money been spent and just?
In some
hasn't been-
cases, yes.
So we don't know how much has been spent?
I think we're looking at 3.5 million. At the district level has been spent that last,
Okay, that hasn't been reimbursed yet.
right,
So if they don't get reimbursed, they're on the hook for this money.
right. And we have some money at the agency level as well, where.
Okay, so Wayne's hand first.
Yeah, I was just trying to get my head wrapped around. I mean, these programs, so not all the money, those are grants for food?
Now, ESSER is totally different.
Yeah.
So what was the 10 to 11 million dollars? What were the grants used for?
Recovering from COVID.
The ESSER stood for Elementary and Secondary Schools Emergency Relief Fund, so they could have been using it maybe for HVAC or,
Yeah, extra support.
So they could use it for fixing facilities to make it,
Yeah, wide ranging,
and the equipment, NSLP equipment, is that related in any way?
that's a small, it's a national school lunch program equipment, so
Okay, for
I think they can replace.
Cafeteria.
Cafeteria, yeah.
So in the news a few weeks ago, there was some pieces about certifying that you were in compliance with,
Title VI.
yeah, and then the whole issue around DEI. Is there any indication that any of our grants that go through to our schools in jeopardy because maybe we didn't put it in the right terms from someone else's perspective? I'm just, all I know is what I read in
Right.
your report.
I haven't heard anything. I think the big date was maybe yesterday where everything was due. I think, yeah.
Do you know, can you enlighten us as to what the potential funding that wouldn't be available if the U.S. Department of Education didn't think we were in compliance with their directives?
So theoretically, all of this funding potentially could be at risk. We're waiting to see how they respond to states that didn't do it exactly the way that they insisted it be done. Today is actually the last day, and tomorrow we may hear something. We will certainly work with the Attorney General's office to push back if that is the case, because there is a requirement in the law for due process anytime there's a possibility of attaching conditions to funds or halting funds or removing funds. And so we would be in a strong position to fight back in terms of due process.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. And I'm not looking for to raise issues where maybe there's no issues to raise them to.
But we hope there
Fine.
won't be an issue. We'll see. Yeah.
Right.
Okay,
Watch other states, go through.
Yeah.
Right.
thank you.
I'm gonna go back to the ESSER and the COVID money.
Sure.
I seem to remember that we added positions at the Agency of Ed to handle this, because there was a lot of money coming through it. Do I have that right, or were they already positions that were there? There's no new positions as a result of that.
There was one limited service position, which eventually, I think, the legislature turned it into a permanent.
Yeah.
Other than that, added position.
Okay, well, I know there's a lot of vacancies at the agency. hence you doing 4 jobs or however many jobs you're doing, Sean.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, Lynn, go ahead.
Yeah, concerning the ESSER money, the agency got one limited position, but there were a lot of school districts that added positions. I mean, this is
Yeah.
anecdotally one of the reasons that their budgets have gone up in the
Yeah.
past few years so much, and they just haven't, they weren't limited, or they never treated them as limited.
Mhm.
Do you have any records or any knowledge, or how do you keep track of that?
I mean, we do a teacher staff collection every year. You know, so we probably could see trends, certain positions, maybe, you know, paras, those kind of maybe increasing and decreasing as someone comes and goes. You know, I've heard as well that some districts have kept some of them. Because you know, apparently the need is still there for those positions, but
Yeah, I mean, different of the supplant rather than supplement versus supplant
mhm.
issue.
I don't
So they-
think ESSER had that rule, but Right.
Yeah, yeah, the problem is that, you know, one-time money is used for one-time things.
yeah, right.
And I don't know what kind of communication the agency had with the schools, but you know, that's something that we talk about here, we talk about the agencies, so
Yeah.
it shouldn't come as a shock to people.
Right. Yeah.
We
Yeah, I
started,
don't know about. Oh,
Go ahead, Ann.
I was just gonna say, the agencies, you know, spoke about these being one-time funds continuously, and also began to prep people for the need to be thinking about which positions they might want to continue and how they might transition those to their regular funding programs. You know, almost as soon as the funds went out, when we certainly ramped up in those conversations in the last year and a half of the funds, and did a lot of technical assistance. I think the challenge is that as Sean said, the need is still there. And if they're rolling it back to some of their regular funding sources, state and local and federal, then they might need to displace something else if those funds don't go up. And so that's where I think there's sometimes hesitancy is it's easier to add than it is to subtract.
Yeah,
With staffing, you know, and contracts and, you know, just longstanding commitments to people. So they might have had to like stop doing one thing and start, you know, in order to keep doing this other thing. And folks have been doing that, but you know, some more effectively than others, certainly. But it's challenging, certainly.
yeah. Go ahead, Wayne.
So they're all part of the state systems. They all have position numbers, like state employee, regular state employee and position numbers?
No, they're not part of the state. You know, they have their own contracts at the SU level, maybe.
Do they have
They probably do have a position numbers.
a classification system and everything?
Yeah.
John.
Can you say more about the summer program? I know one of the school districts back in my area of the state were concerned about perhaps not having funding for that, even though you said nothing's.
Yes, so Kingdom East.
Yeah. Kingdom
Yeah,
East.
so yeah,
Newspaper.
their summer program is currently funded with our PESER money. So that's the money we had approval, or they had approval to spend it. They took, you know, the new administration took that away, so we are currently working, and that's one of them we're working with specifically to get a waiver put in so they can act on, approve it or not. So kind of hanging, and you know, we haven't submitted it. We hope to submit it, I think, this tomorrow, and then we'll just be waiting. And I know they need to make decisions.
Right, that's what I'm kind of thinking.
Yeah.
Because someone will be here before we know it. So
Yeah.
you have a sense of how long you might get a response back, or it's just kind of,
No.
submit the waiver
Yeah,
and kind of at the mercy of,
I think
we can get back to you when.
we have we have a meeting today with an organization that talks to all the states. So I hope we'll get some feedback from them to see what kind of timing other states are seeing.
Thank you.
And
Yep.
just to be clear, the summer food service program, is not impacted by this waiver issue. So the summer food service program will be running at full steam this summer, meaning the meals programs for children around the state. So even if a particular site doesn't offer academic programming, there will be other summer meal sites that children can go to who might have, accessed their meals through that site. We have a ton of sites, and many of them are eligible because of their percent poverty to operate as open sites, meaning that members of the community, you don't have to be in a specific program. It doesn't have to be at a specific location. They can come to, say, to a park, pick up the meals. They can pick up meals for multiple days. They don't have to prove that they meet or don't meet some eligibility criteria. So the summer meals program is, basically ready to roll out across the state. The summer meals program, I should say, across the state. And it's very robust this summer because we have really good poverty numbers. So we're able to continue to operate, really, really quality programs around the state in many locations to feed kids this summer. We're also continuing to operate the pandemic EBT program, which is a new program that started during COVID, where in the summer, kids who live in families below the poverty line can get food on their SNAP cards. They can get the benefit that they equivalent to what they would have gotten in terms of school meals. They can get a certain amount of money, their families can, to support food needs in the summer, since they're not accessing meals at school. So that also is continuing. We just got approval for our plan for that. So the nutrition programs are not impacted by all of this late liquidation waiver problems.
So I've got a line up here. So I just want to ask, it sounded like the summer learning programs might be affected, though. Did I hear you say that?
Only in those, I mean, the one district you're talking about is intended to fund their summer learning program with those pandemic funds. So they're at risk because, as Sean said, the feds took away or reversed the approvals of all of those late liquidation requests that had been approved in the prior administration. Now we have to apply for waivers program by program. So whether theirs will be approved and whether they'll get that approval in time to actually operate a summer program, meaning like an academic and recreational program in that site, is not clear. And if they've said they don't have other resources to make up for that. So they may not, but in other communities, people operate summer programs all the time with state funds, with local funds, with federal dollars, with regular federal dollars, with 21C. They have, but there will be summer programming throughout the state in many locations.
But some locations may not be able to do it if they don't get this money.
The only one that I know of that is specifically saying that they couldn't do it if they don't get this money, and they intended to fund it, it sounds like fully with their pandemic money, is the Kingdom East one.
Okay.
And I misspoke with the EBT. I said pandemic EBT. I do that all the time because that's how it started. It's summer EBT. It's a permanent
Summer
program.
EBT, okay.
Pandemic program. Yeah, SEBT.
Okay, thank you. I have Wayne, Lynn, and Jim.
Mine's more of a general question. I'm not very familiar with how the education system works, more with the state system. So they're not state employees. Does each district have, if you have a classification system for employees, does each district control each one? Is there a centralized system there at all?
I think it's each supervisory union may have a contract.
Supervisory?
Yeah, so. But,
so they negotiate through the contract in order to come up with a classification system?
I think so.
The same?
And they vary.
They vary.
Yeah, depending on the part of the state they're in.
Thanks.
Lynn.
Yeah, I want to talk about the summer program. I mean, this is something that, we always talk about. The running gap or the melt during the summer, and that you have to, the summer programs would be something that could help students stay current and maybe improve. Is there any documentation anywhere in the agency on this, whether it's the one that's ending with this money that is being challenged, or with any of the others? I mean, do any of them, do they all have some of this federal money, or are they just done this for years of other money? And is there any data? With the
Yes,
results?
and there is data. There are a number of summer programs, that are funding sources for summer programs. Sean, I'm gonna get this wrong, I know, but we have the cannabis money, which is state money where we're funding a number of grants for summer programs. We have the Stronger Connections grant, which is federal, is funding some summer programs. 21C is a summer and after school learning program through the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. That's used, it's a competitive grant program used in many communities. And it's operated in schools and other nonprofit, locations. We have state and local, they can use their own resources. And we have another program, I'm trying to remember the name of it, another funding source. It's a state program. It's like the cannabis program. There's another state program that has been funding, I believe has been funding summer, grants for summer programming as well. So, and yes, there is data. Part of getting these grants is that you have to demonstrate that you're evaluating the impact of the program. So there's information that the cannabis program is collecting. There's information that the 21C program is collecting. The folks who oversee those programs could come in and talk to you about that if you'd like.
Jim?
Yeah, just real quickly, do we know how many of these programs are funded or authorized under the Farm Bill that supposedly is done every 5 years or something?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm just curious because we keep hearing that's been delayed and
It's been delayed for like 18 months or something. I mean, it's
yeah,
not just recently delayed.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
It's been a
right.
long delayed
yeah.
program.
That's normal though. I mean, over the past 15, 20 years, this conversation has gone on every time. It always seems late with the Farm Bill, so I don't know that I see anything alarming over it.
Doesn't seem to be a big sense of urgency around all of that. Okay. Okay, so your next page is about FTEs?
Yeah. So we talked about FTEs some, but so we have 48.75 FTEs coming from US Department of Ed grants, USDA grants. We have 6.65 FTEs. We have another small grant program for assessment with 1. And then the indirect dollars we earn off the federal administrative dollars. We fund 8.61 FTEs with those funds. So a total of 65. And like I said, 92 of our 178 positions have some sort of federal funding.
Right, somewhere from 5 to whatever, 100%, like that, right? So what I'm hearing is maybe cautious optimism at the moment. It's your funds, your federal funds for the
Short-term.
most everything, yes. For FY26, fingers crossed, looks like things are okay. It sounds like it's a little harder to reach people.
Right.
We're waiting on some waivers on a couple of things, but not enough to totally eliminate programs or reduce programs. We have one school district that's struggling on the learning piece, summer learning. You're waiting for some waivers. At least on summer learning and on some other things too, you're waiting for some waivers?
Yeah, we have about, I think, 54 grants that were caught up in the late liquidation. So every single one of those will need a waiver. So the districts are working to put those into us, and we'll review them, give them feedback, and then we'll actually push them up to the US Department of Ed.
So 54 waiver requests,
At least that
at least.
they're asking for them by project in some cases, so
So when the they is the school districts?
US Ed.
US is.
Yeah. So
So what do the programs cover besides summer learning?
it varies. It's a lot of RPES stuff. So HVACs are some of it.
Okay,
And then there's all kinds of other things there.
not the other food programs or
No.
the title programs?
No.
Okay,
It's
No,
all,
but things like tutoring,
yeah,
Read Vermont, which is a state program, is,
yeah.
Yeah.
So important programs.
yes.
Okay, go ahead.
So what's the need for the waivers? What is how is the waivers required? And there must be are there multiple causes or?
well, the new administration, Secretary McMahon, they sent us a letter in late March saying they've withdrawn all of our approvals. So, but they offered this waiver path. So, for every grant that's in that late liquidation status, we have to ask permission again to
Justify.
yeah.
And this was done across the country, so, if you can imagine, small Vermont has, say, 54, California has hundreds. That's part of the delay, is that there's fewer people and more stuff to review now with fewer people.
Yeah, as far as we know, the team that did handle late liquidation was let go. So other people are doing it now. So
Any other questions for? You see that? And if we missed anything that you want to let us know about?
No, the only other thing I would say is, in terms of so state FY 26, that is the federal FY 25 budget. The continuing resolution in March covered the discretionary programs, and that includes child nutrition and education. The
Yeah.
larger share of the federal budget was not included in that continuing resolution. That's the mandatory programs, and that includes, or I'm sorry, child nutrition is in the mandatory, along with SNAP and Medicaid and other entitlement programs, basically. And there is a reconciliation bill that is under consideration right now. There's two different versions in the House and Senate, and we haven't really seen where that's moving. The versions are quite different. This is the bill that's supposed to extend the tax cuts and increase spending for the military, which means there has to be, and raise the debt ceiling, which means there also has to be cuts somewhere. And that the extent of the cuts and the time frame for the cuts and all are very different in the House and Senate version.
Right.
And all of that is to say that our biggest concern is if the cuts do happen in the House version, we're looking at potentially cuts to Medicaid across the country. And how quickly those might kick in is unclear, because they could, put them all, they could front load them or they could back load them within the 10-year time frame. But Medicaid, you've probably heard this from Human Services, is a program that's really important in schools as well, both in terms of services for students, but also because all of our poverty numbers, which determine how much we get for all these other programs we've just been discussing today, are based on heavily on Medicaid eligibility, among other, categories of eligibility. So that is actually our bigger concern, is what will happen with this reconciliation process and how quickly it'll impact states and.
Right. Yeah, and the timing of it, okay. And as I understand it, the House has a self-imposed May 15th deadline to get their version out. Is that what you're hearing too?
That's our understanding. It's all very under wraps. The longer this takes, honestly, for us, the better it is, because a new school year starts July 1.
Right,
And if a child is on Medicaid as of July 1, they are considered low income. Well, if they meet the 185% or less of poverty on Medicaid, I should say,
right,
they're considered low income for that whole school year.
yeah,
So if they're still debating this and no cuts have gone into effect that impact children's eligibility by July 1, which is looking more and more likely,
yeah.
then that will give us at least another year of, where our poverty numbers should not change dramatically, which is an excellent thing for many reasons.
Yes. Thank you. And Lynn has a question.
Yeah, thank you. My understanding was that a lot of the eligibility for a lot of the federal money coming into states was based on free and reduced lunch data. Is that still part of that, or have they transferred it to Medicaid?
Well, what we do yes, it is based on free and reduced lunch eligibility. What we do is, in order to determine free and reduced meal eligibility, we rely less and less on applications from parents. We have direct certification, which means if the family has already qualified for another means tested program that proves that they're below the federal poverty level of 185%, or below the federal poverty level, we don't need to have them fill out an application. We get that data directly now from Department of Health for Medicaid, from Economic Services Division and AHS for SNAP. We get TANF data. And then there's a couple of categories, like if a child is in foster care, they're automatically considered FRL eligible. If they're in Head Start, if they're homeless. So these statuses as well qualify. So a smaller and smaller portion of our kids' eligibility for free or reduced price meals is being determined based on applications from parents. So yes, it is still FRL eligibility, but more and more it's based on what we call direct certification via these other programs and data sharing about eligibility for the other programs.
Was that a different eligibility previously when you used free and reduced luncheon, or is it?
No, so the rules are for free meals, you have to be at 130%, or in a household that is 130% or less of the federal poverty level, which of course changes every year. For reduced price meals, you have to be at 185% or less of the federal poverty level. So between 130 and 185. We consider low income in Vermont both of those categories. So if a child is eligible for either free or reduced, they're reported as low income.
Right. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from the committee? Any last thoughts from Anne or Sean at this point? All right, I guess we're going to keep our fingers crossed, as we're doing with many, many things here in state government. Thank you for all the work you're doing, and we appreciate you coming in today.
Thank you.
Okay, take care.
You.
Thanks.
Take care. Yeah, bye.
Bye-bye. So committee, I was just writing down, we will be back here at 2:00 on the Social Services Block Grant with Rich Donahue, CFO at Agency of Human Services, and Anna Swenson, and then some more federal funding about SNAP, LIHEAP, and TANF, so some other funding programs. So we have some gaps in our agenda, which is fine. So some homework you can consider doing, please. By now, I checked earlier, it wasn't ready. By now, the budget document, the Senate version of the past budget, they passed it out unanimously yesterday afternoon out of Senator Probst. There should be a document over around by the copy room. And so you can get that and take a look at it. There's also spreadsheets that were on the Senate Appropriations webpage from yesterday. And I'm going to ask Erin for a copy of the web report myself. And that may be something that others of you want. So maybe Erin can take an order before she sends it in. How do you
On the web.
like the web report? Pardon me?
It's on the web also.
Yes,
Right.
some of us like the printed copy.
Should I have it?
How many people want a printed?
Raise your hand.
I think, Tom, do you want a printed copy of the web report?
Yes.
Why don't we get 10, because I think Dave looks at it online. Is that what's best for you, Dave? Okay, so we'll get 10 copies of the web report. So I would like you to take a look at particularly your areas in the budget portfolio, see what's different, what you like and don't like. You know, this will eventually be in a committee of conference. I'm going to see about getting Emily in to go over what they did, the changes they made from ours. I don't know if she's still recovering from Senate or whether she's going to be able to come in maybe by tomorrow. I'll check in with her.
You know what the language might be?
Well, besides in the bill itself, I don't know. There may be some, just check the Senate Appropriations
Thank you.
website, check Emily, Grady, I don't know who else, Amy, and see what you've got there that might be interesting.
But the addendum should
The addendum should be out by the copy room by now, because when I checked with Tony over an hour ago, he said it would be within the hour, so we'll get some copies of that. If you've got concerns about your areas or things that went in from us at the last minute, keep a list. When the committee of conference gets going, we'll want to, know about that. We can talk about it before that, but this will be on the Senate floor Wednesday and Thursday next week. So there's that. The bill that we have on the floor for today, S36, which TIF is doing, is going to be postponed on legislative day. So you already know that, but it'll be tomorrow. So don't be surprised when the rest of you hear that. We don't have any other bills yet, but we'll be getting some more. It may be a couple of weeks before we get more, but we'll be getting more bills. There's a healthcare reform bill that's in the healthcare committee, S126. That promises to be a fairly lengthy, complicated bill. And I'd tell you to read it now, but I know it's going to change in the next week. So if you want to read it now, you can, but that will be coming along with the other list that I sent you last week of bills that we expect to be coming. We are going to have a token session on Monday. So don't worry about that. I don't know if we've done one yet this session. Have we done one yet this session? I'm not sure we have. So I get to be the token session person. I'm going to be speaker for
That's not nice, huh?
Monday.
Token.
So if you want to turn in, you'll see.
Don't ask for a quorum.
I just get to say, seeing no quorum. Betsy Ann tells me what I'm supposed to say.
Are we off Monday?
This Monday at 3:00 is a token session.
But is this committee meeting Monday?
This committee's not meeting Monday.
I just wanted to confirm.
Yes, correct. We are not meeting Monday. There might be some Monday meetings of the body as we get closer to the end of the session. I don't know, the TBD. The committee of conference might meet on a Monday afternoon, TBD, I don't know. This is that time in the session. We've been able to fill our calendar pretty well with all this federal fund stuff, but there's going to be hurry up and wait times. So there'll be things we have to do fast, and then there'll be these gaps.
It's doing fast. May 11th.
So, other committees are thinking about what are the bills they want to research and get out for next year. We don't operate in the same way because we have the budget adjustment budget and the bills that come from them. So unless there's a particular bill you personally want to be working on now, that is something that you can personally be doing. But as a committee, we're not going to be initiating bills. So we don't have that for homework. So those of us that have been here longer, other thoughts? Dave, you have any wisdom to impart at this point of the year? That sort of describe what's happening?
I'm a waiter.
Our cabaret